teacher.
Must have taken it over to my desk, the keyboard.
Meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. Visitors requesting permission to address the board on specific agenda items should sign in before the meeting starts on the form on the board table. The board requests a discussion time limit of 3 minutes on any specific agenda item, and we ask visitors to make only one appearance per item. We ask those addressing the board to speak from the podium and to state their name and address. Board Policy 0167.3 dictates that personnel issues will not be addressed. Concerns about individual employees of the district should be brought to the superintendent or the designee. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodations should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. The Board of Trustees respectfully requests those guests and visitors in attendance to be courteous and to silence their cell phone. As we do at every meeting, we open up with prayer, so please join me. Dear Lord, please be with us tonight as we work with the school's business and set policies and set agendas. Please be with all those in our school system, all of our employees. We will be having fall break here coming up, so please be with all of those who will be traveling. Make sure they're safe. And as always, please be with all those that serve and protect us for our freedoms. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Mr. Ransom to come up here and the rest of the Pride kids to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Roll call. We do have everyone present. Mrs. Hutchison's doing virtual with us. Mission statement. Can you hear us, Lisa?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you go ahead and lead us with the mission statement?
Yep. Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and we will do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Thank you. Superintendent announcements and celebrations. Dr. Millman.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. Good evening, everyone. Happy to bring you some announcements here this evening. First of all, I want to make sure folks are aware that this week is our National School Bus Safety Week. So we certainly like to recognize our transportation department for all they do, transporting approximately 2,000 students every school day on our buses. You may recall earlier this school year, we passed inspection yet again on the first try with all of our buses. Our mechanics and folks at transportation do an amazing job and certainly have some challenges this year that are unique as they work with our students. It's also National School Principals Week, and so make sure you take a moment to thank our principals and their hardworking staff, all they do for our students on a daily basis. Our Perry Worth Elementary Spell Bowl team is up and running. The students continue to work in this academic club, so thank you, board, for supporting that club and allowing that to take place. They're obviously doing that in new and creative ways as well. Perry Worth also, and I think you might have seen this on our social media posts and some retweets from me and whatnot, that in their annual Distance for Dollars walkathon, Perry Worth earned $21,448 recently in their walkathon. So congratulations to them. That is an incredible feat. So they, of course, will be able to help bring some opportunities to their school for their efforts. So thank you for that. The United States Department of Agriculture announced recently that they have extended the program to fund school breakfasts and lunch for all students through the remainder of the 2020-21 school year. You may recall that they had started that program And we alerted folks that if they didn't see their lunch accounts getting smaller from what they had put in there, they'd wonder what was happening if their child maybe wasn't eating lunch, but it was because of this federal program. We've got word that it's going to be extended through this school year. So that's good news for our families, and happy to report that to them. We are obviously completing our first quarter, and certainly proud of everyone as we've navigated this COVID-19 challenge that we've all worked through. I would like to take a moment to especially thank our technology staff. This has been an exceedingly difficult year for them, keeping things going, providing support for teachers, families, and students. If you haven't had an opportunity, I would encourage you to click on some of the links that the technology department put together for this upcoming e-learning week. We had over 100 parents attend their question and answer session on their YouTube channel last evening. This coming week, or in the next coming days, Ms. Totterud can remind me, maybe tomorrow evening, they're going to have an Ask Them Anything.
That's tonight, and then the take-home is tomorrow.
Gotcha. This evening, they're doing an Ask Me Anything on Instagram. So we will have a few more students, I think, in that interaction with technology. They've just done an amazing job providing resources and support for our families. So I'd like to thank them. And then finally, and we'll be recognizing them a little bit later in the board meeting, but our friends at the Boone County Community Foundation, who were so gracious with their gift to us, to all Boone County school districts. What we committed to do with a portion of those dollars is to provide some recognition and affirmation for our staff. So we've gone around the district and provided a gift to all of our classified staff this past week: transportation, clerical, nurses, all of our class custodial and maintenance. Just a little token of our appreciation. We wouldn't be able to do that without the community partners we have. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well. And that's all I have for announcements this evening.
Okay. Item number 3, certified work session. Board, I need a motion to certify our work session meeting on September 16th, 2020.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any questions about the work session meeting? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. I sure did. I skipped number 2, approval of minutes from our September 14th meeting and September 15th public hearing meeting. So I need a motion for that, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, so I need all those in favor for the September 14th and September 15th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, item number 4, audience to visitors. I have nobody sign up. Okay. Item number 5, Tiger Pride students and community members. Dr. Millman.
I'll-
Pouring down.
Rain is here.
I will turn it over to Ms. Scott. We can draw this out. Maybe you can outlast the rain, I
Yeah.
hear. on the-
Well, it's been a while since we've been able to gather to recognize our students, and we're excited to kick off the 2021 school year by recognizing students in the 5th, 8th, and 12th grade, representatives of their buildings as Pride champions. So we're going to begin with our 2 representatives from the high school. Nominated by the LHS staff, we have Kushi Patel. The staff at LHS is proud to recognize Kushi. She is a tremendous young lady that represents our school and community with the utmost integrity and character. As evidence of her academic status and exemplary school involvement, Kushi was recently selected as one of 2 LHS seniors to be nominated for the Distinguished Wells Scholarship at Indiana University. Her incredible work at LHS and our community is a testament to the amazing young lady that Kushi has become. She is also an entrepreneur in her spare time and has started her own photography and jewelry business. Kushi fully exemplifies all aspects of Pride, and we're thankful and appreciative that she is a London Tiger. Congratulations. Yeah, that'd probably be best. Also recognized from the high school is Tucker Ransom. Tucker is an outstanding young man who is recognized by his peers as a leader and school ambassador. Tucker is a very talented, musically gifted, and intelligent young man. He is also a young man who uses his immense talents to spread positivity, compassion, and equality for all. Last spring, he created a music video to lift the spirits of his peers when our school buildings were closed and activities were closed down. Whether Tucker is giving a moving performance on the stage or speaking individually to an adjusting freshman at LHS, Tucker lives in the moment and makes every moment matter for the good of others. He exemplifies all aspects of pride at all times and makes LHS and our Lebanon community a better place every day through his words, music, and actions. Congratulations, Tucker. Nominated by the SWAG team at the middle school, we have Olivia Kent. Olivia is a successful student in all her classes. She participates and contributes to class discussions as well as going out of her way to help others. Perhaps the most compelling attribute of Olivia is her kindness, which is much needed during these times. As a new student, Olivia has quickly set the bar high for other students in regards to our Pride Initiative. Congratulations, Olivia. Also from Lebanon Middle School, nominated by the Bulldog team, we have Oliver Trotter. Oliver maintains his own personal standard of excellence to which he consistently holds himself accountable. He is an independent thinker and a strong advocate for his learning. He actively seeks out what is needed for his success, and he frequently goes above and beyond the requirements. Oliver is a student who epitomizes the characteristics of the Pride program. Congratulations. From Central Elementary, we have Blake Aragati, who was nominated by Mrs. Lauerman. Blake is a student full of Tiger pride. He is one who comes to school prepared for whatever the day may bring. He is able to set aside any distractions and persist throughout the day, using every minute available to work towards his goals. He sets higher expectations for himself than what is set for the class. Blake listens to his classmates, digests the information, and responds reflectively. He considers other people's wins as well as his own when helping out his accountability partners stay focused on their goals. He is a huge help when tracking classroom goals. He lives by the part of the mission statement, I will show grace and work hard to be nothing but a great leader and show that I have good talents, traits, and skills. Congratulations, Blake. Representing Harney Elementary is Joshua Gully. Harney is excited to recognize Josh for the Tiger Pride champion because of his work ethic and positive attitude. Josh is a very strong student academically in many areas, but he does not allow this to distract him from working hard and going above and beyond. He is one of the news reporters for our TV station and has been there every week to do his job with excellence. Throughout the day, Josh is often the first to be started on his work and manages his time to complete as much as possible before going home. Congratulations, Josh. From Hatteby Stokes, we have Kara Parker, nominated by Mr. Allen. Kara is a true Tiger Pride champion in all that she does. She comes to class every day with the intention of having more success than she had the day before. She understands the value of hard work and how it'll build her success as a student and young woman. She consistently treats all her classmates with courtesy, honesty, and respect, and helps to create a classroom environment that feels safe for everyone by leading as an example. As a teacher, her teacher feels that he can depend on her to do the right thing even when he is not looking. She is the perfect representative for this award and is continuously working to be the most successful citizen she can be. Congratulations, Kara. And from Perry Worth, we have Katie Bowling. Haley was nominated by her teacher, Mrs. Hendrickson. Carrie Worth is excited to recognize Katie as their Tiger Pride champion. She shows persistence in all her daily tasks and finishes what's needed. She problem solves and finds the answers to difficult problems through many different means. She shows respectfulness to all and has a positive attitude and always does what's right. Katie shows initiative by wanting to find ways to understand when she isn't sure and always seeks out understanding when she's unclear on something. Katie is the type of student who knows what to do and does it without needing reminders. Congratulations, Katie. In addition, this evening, we'd also like to recognize our Community Tiger Pride champions. Nominated by the Lebanon High School, we have Dr. Surveys. Lebanon High School is honored to recognize Dr. Surveys as our Tiger Pride Community Champion. Dr. Surveys has served our community, corporation, and high school in a highly professional and dedicated manner for a very long time. He's been a team doctor on the sidelines of countless events and in the stands cheering as a patron, father, and grandfather. In his role as a fan at an event, there have been many times where he immediately put on his professional hat to attend to a fellow fan or athlete in need of medical services. Let's fast forward to 2020. And through his role as the health officer for the health department, Dr. Surveys has proven to be an immensely valuable and incredible knowledgeable resource for our schools and the community as a whole with the impact of COVID-19. While many counties have been challenged with a void of direction and leadership from their local medical agencies, Dr. Surveys has provided unparalleled support and genuine leadership during this time. He has been a constant resource for our school system when we needed him most. We know this year has been very difficult, but it has proven to be manageable in a large part due to the guidance that we received from Dr. Surveys. His responsiveness at a minute's notice is greatly appreciated. Our school, corporation, and community are greatly blessed to have Dr. Surveys as a servant leader through his professional and personal life. Congratulations. Next, we would like to honor our friends at the Community Foundation of Boone County. The representative would like to come forward. Our friends at the Community Foundation work to live out their mission of uniting people, organizations, and philanthropy to create a thriving community for all in their day-to-day operations. As an organization, they are always working to build and strengthen our community and make a difference in the lives of others. Their work supports nonprofit organizations, including our school, and provides valuable leadership and resources throughout the community for Boone County. They administer scholarships for our graduating seniors, manage funds from donors who believe in our students and their pursuit of higher education. The recent donation of $50,000 gift to each school corporation in our county is a true testament to how they continue to be responsive to the present and future needs. As a school district, we appreciate your ongoing support and dedication to strengthening our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I'd like to just say a couple words. One is it's so awesome to see faces, first of all, at a board meeting, but certainly faces of our students. I have the enviable position of being able to see our elementary students exemplifying the pride attributes and then watching them in their larger selves like Cushy and Tucker. I can see the whole progression as a superintendent as I visit the buildings and see the great leadership that's happening, and it's just our honor to honor you this evening. What I regret, however, is normally I would be walking among you handing out lollipops to all of the award winners before the board meeting. So post-COVID, I'll do that again, and maybe soon at a classroom near you, I'll have to distribute some belated lollipops to our award winners tonight. And then second of all, if there's anybody who's taken more spears than the superintendent during COVID, it's probably been Doc Surveys, as he has that enviable task of sifting through the data and giving us good news on some days and not so good news on other days. And so we certainly appreciate your partnership, Doc, and the foundation, as we spoke about before. Your ongoing support is just so appreciated by all of us. So thank you to all the winners for all that you're doing.
I got a couple things too. If you're a parent of one of the Pride winners, could you please stand up? I want to thank you. Obviously, we know it's 2020 has just been, off the charts and everything, but parents are having to step up even more right now. And so I thank you for everything you guys have done to help make your child be successful and spread that out. So thank you very much. For the next, Dr. Surveys, I do want to thank you too. I know you definitely have had a lot of conversations, a lot of tough conversations that people don't want to hear or talk about. But I do want to thank you for helping us and guiding us. And we talked about this from the beginning. It's a changes daily. And so we heavily relied on you and your staff, and we did the things the right way. So I want to thank you for that. And I think I heard that you're retiring. So happy retirement, and make sure you stay safe. So thank you very much. Now, we're moving on. If you are a Pride parent and you would like to leave, unless you want to stay and listen to everything here, but if you would like to leave, now would be the time to do that.
Just Pride parents.
Or anybody, if anybody wants to leave, they can, yeah.
My stuff's right here, Mark.
Not you, Mr. Tate.
You can't, Charles. You're getting your budget approved.
Our budget, our. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, item number 6, district-wide facility assessment and feasibility study. Gibraltar team.
Well, good evening, President Bertrand, Dr. Milliman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Yep.
I know you've met us before, but I thought for the benefit of the audience that I would introduce Team Gibraltar. My name's Ken Folks. I am the Chief Education Officer, Chairman of the Board for Gibraltar Design, 39 years in public education. Actually sat what Dr. Milliman did as Superintendent of East Allen County Schools. And again, just delighted to be here. I'd like to introduce in the audience Mike Rosillo. Mike is a Senior Project Manager with Gibraltar Design. I know you've heard Mike present before. And to my right is the President of Gibraltar Design, Mr. Jim Thompson. So now let's get started. Make sure I can work this thing. All right. So far, so good. Take a look at what the content is tonight. On behalf of Team Gibraltar, just want to thank you for choosing Gibraltar. We thoroughly enjoyed our time in Lebanon. We found your staff to be very friendly, courteous, and helpful. And we are very excited about continuing our partnership with Lebanon Schools. The agenda for tonight, I'll do an overview of the process, and I'll turn it over to Jim. Jim's going to do observations from the study. I'll come back, talk about safety and security, future opportunities, and then Jim will wrap it up with our next steps. So, can't forget to advance. Overview of the process. These are the components that we have studied today. I want you to know it's an information gathering process, and then once we gather that information, it's verifying and validating the information. We're focused on gathering data, and then we have to verify and validate it. The process is a combination of quantitative and qualitative data analysis. For example, President John Adams said facts are stubborn things. That's the quantitative part. What's your square footage? How many classrooms do you have? How many buildings do you have in the district? But the qualitative part is just as important, and that's the narrative. That's the perception. Those are the things we get when we interact with your staff. And so we have toured the facilities. We've held meetings with the facilities personnel. We surveyed the staff. The staff survey had a comment section on it so that they could write in their perceptions. We've held meetings with the building level administrators. We've held meetings with the central office administrators. And as you know, some of those have been in person and some of those have been virtual. And we found that both have been successful. But we've been in your buildings and we've also communicated virtually with your staff. We've held meetings with central office administration in the same way. And as you know, we have provided board updates to the board to keep you informed. And we hope that those have been of benefit to the board. Okay. So overview of the process. These are the study components to be completed. And there will be a final report. And these are the components that will be in the final report. And I'll just read those in case people cannot see those. Facility assessment for all buildings, and you'll get a preview of that tonight because Jim Thompson is going to share with you some preliminary assessments of the buildings. Building space utilization, what's the best way to use the spaces that are already in the buildings. Learning environment input, that'll be part of that final report as well. That's the information that we've gathered from your staff, from your building level administrators, from your central office administrators. Once we have that input, we will share with you some learning environment considerations based on the information that we've gathered. There'll be facility improvement considerations in that final report, operational cost savings, feasibility study, options to meet needs. You'll get a little preview of that tonight later in our PowerPoint about some possible options. And then a summary of preliminary cost estimates. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Thompson for observations from the study.
Good evening, members of the board and members of the community and one board member virtually as we continue to do this. First of all, I think that probably the most important thing to emphasize, and we said this, boy, by now it's probably 5 months ago, last time we saw you, we get the advantage, Gibraltar Design, of working all over the state from up against Lake Michigan all the way down to the Ohio River, and you have, and you've heard this before, some of the best and well-maintained facilities that we've seen in the entire state. I think if you listen to your mission statement about what you're trying to achieve, providing a safe, secure, quality learning environment, I think that just speaks to the simple walking through the building and the way it's cleaned and visually looking. But also, I know that from listening to your facility staff and working with Mr. Tate, it's absolutely a priority for the board to make sure you're ahead of what needs to be done. You're planning your budgets to make sure priority items for facilities are getting done so that under the category which this might look at, preventative maintenance, things that might be coming, I think it's a stellar report. One of the other things I wanted to tell you when you see this is that I think because of the amount of months that have transpired and some changes you've had with your facilities department with Jim Whaling and now Mr. Barnes, two terrific people, we have made a promise to take the additional time to go back and meet with them again and get their additional input. Some of that may just be a matter of updating what you're seeing. So what you see here tonight is not final. You'll see some gaps and some missing information, and some of this information may change after we meet with Mr. Whaling and Mr. Barnes as well. So this is an in-progress update. Very simply, I think if you remember last time we showed this to you, it's just meant to be at a school board level, an ability for you to see a snapshot and say what might be coming, what are some areas we might be looking to address, a guide, roadmap, those kinds of things. It's by no means an absolute definitive, you shall do this or you should do that. It's just a good, useful guide, and it kind of helps us and planners talk with facilities people to see what's on their minds. So it's indicative of their input. Black boxes, things that are coming up that seem to be of more attention needed. An empty box that you'll see would simply be something that's meeting current standards. Maybe it was just updated, just finished. And then a half box is quite simply, it meets standards. In the life of a building, there's things we would have done in buildings maybe 8 or 9 years ago. They're still perfectly fine now, but maybe the new standard has changed. And that could be anything from a restroom, space planning, ADA accessibility, to something more complicated. So the slides that you have are in groups. So you have like the site and the building envelope and some takeaways of what can be observed there. And again, if you see the boxes, it's just certain things that jump out. In our more detailed report that you get as a final and after our meetings with your staff, you'll start to see lists of what some of those things might include, and I think you saw a preliminary of that several months ago. And then you have the systems in the building, the heating, cooling, plumbing, and those types of things. And again, many times, just if you think about the life of a school building in terms of decades, is how we talk about it in terms of 20 years, many of these systems can be just fine, even though it might be approaching end of its standard life, 20 years or so. Piping and certain things are just materials that can last much longer than that. Then when you get to interior components and other aspects of the building that are more cosmetic, maybe aesthetic. Sometimes people get tired of the color of the carpet before the actual carpet's worn out. But at any rate, we try and inventory some of those things, including life safety systems. More and more technologies are available. We just like to make note if there's something that is meeting functional standards, but there might be an opportunity to look at updating that.
Right, safety and security, high priority for Lebanon schools, and we heard that from everyone. We've heard that from your building staff, your superintendent, your facility staff, and the school board. And we just want you to know that as we take a look at school safety, we do things that are both proactive and preventative measures. It's basically how can we make our schools safer, and what specific areas need to be addressed. And we, if we could, we would add a fifth bullet to that one up there. We would add Gibraltar Design. It's a high priority for us as well. And I tell you, it's such a high priority for Gibraltar Design. They hired a chief education officer a year ago who is a 20-year school safety specialist, who wrote his dissertation on school safety, who's presented at the state and national level. And so we bring that expertise to you as well. Safety and security, a lot of times people think of intruders, and they think of what are we going to do to keep intruders out of our building. But you know what? There's all those daily things that are part of safety and security as well. So these are the kind of things we also pay attention to. They're very important because they're daily things. It's your traffic flow. It's your car and bus separation to make sure everybody's safe. Student drop-off and pickup areas to make sure that students, when they leave the building and go to the car, it's a safe trip. And the same way around when they come from the car to the building to make sure that that's a safe area. And it's been thought about. That is a part of that proactive, preventative part. When students are waiting on buses, making sure that they're safe, that they're away from the drive, and that they're separated from vehicles as much as possible. People have to walk to and from your building. You have student drivers, you have staff members, all your buildings that have to walk to and from, and to make sure that those areas are safe. And the lighting near the entrance and the lighting in the parking lot as well are very important aspects of that. And we look at all of those. As far as secure entry, this is what a lot of people think of when they take a look at school safety, and that is to keep intruders out. So secure entrances is something we have a lot of expertise in. And again, it's verifying and validating and being proactive and preventative. Those are critical components in school safety. Line of sight whenever possible. It's nice when you can see the visitors coming into the building for as far away as possible. It's very nice to have a secure vestibule where the visitor gets buzzed into that vestibule. The office staff can see that person and they can make a judgment. Is this a person we want to buzz in? And they can communicate with that person. So it's important to identify your visitors and make sure that you have people coming into the building that you want to come into the building. Electronic controls are a big part of that as well, because you have to buzz people into the building, into the office, and many times out of the office. And security cameras, I can tell you as a building principal and building level administrator for 13 years, I spent a lot of time looking at security surveillance. And so you always want to have a camera in the right place. And you try to do your best to do that. And that final bullet there, SRO office located near the main office. We heard that from your building level administrators, that it's important for them to have that SRO near the entrance for lots of reasons. Sometimes the office staff may be a little reluctant to buzz somebody in. Great time, SRO's right there. Could you please assist me? Sometimes you buzz somebody in that you thought was good, and then all of a sudden they become disruptive, and then it's nice to have that SRO there. So that's something that we definitely want to take a look at. Future opportunities. Knowing that there are limitations, opportunities, and challenges at all of your schools, and that you're at the point now in time where you have the opportunity to improve things and move forward, our mission at Gibraltar Design is to help assist you in getting to where you want to be. And so this is the process that we go through. Review, we've gathered all that information. Now we have to verify and validate it. Collaborate, we're going to work with you to determine future options. Plan, we're going to create a plan with you. Implement, we're going to put that plan into motion, and execute. You follow through methodically to make sure that the plan is executed to the degree that you want it executed. Overall district facility considerations, these are some of the things we've gathered as well. Your elementary school, some of them, because of age and original design, there are limitations to 21st century learning. You have some small classrooms. There's a lot of collaborative learning going on now, and some of those small classrooms are not conducive, or not the best for that type of 21st century collaborative learning. We've discovered that the HVAC is a priority at Harney Elementary. You're all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, and so at the bottom of that hierarchy, you've got safety and comfort. You have to have those things so you can move forward into higher learning. And if the students are uncomfortable because it's too hot or it's too cold, those are things that need to be rectified. Building capacity issues. I've been a principal, and I know when you're approaching your 90%, even though you're not 100% yet, you start to feel tight in your building, and you have a couple of your schools that are at that point. On the secondary side, there's plenty of room for growth. There's no building capacity issues at this time, but we would look at opportunities to repurpose some of those spaces that are in your secondary buildings. Continue on with future opportunities. These are some of the things that we learned when we interacted with your building principals and we looked at your staff surveys. One of the things is to transform media centers into a hub of learning, and we find this with lots of schools we work with across the state. A lot of times media centers just kind of sit there and they're not used a lot. When they become a hub of learning, when teachers can take their students there to collaborate, when you've got collaborative spaces, we've got the technology you need, there becomes a waiting list to get into that media center, so to make that media center into a hub of learning. We heard from your staff as well the need for STEM and robotic spaces, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, to have a home for those places within the building. Outdoor spaces, that's something that's really topical right now with COVID, because getting outside, more space to move around, fresh air. So there was a need expressed for developing those for instruction and dining and meetings. Lots of outside community services coming into your buildings now, and it's nice to have a private space for those community service organizations to meet with students and sometimes with parents, rather than having to meet at some place that is not conducive to having a meeting like out in the hallway. Expand uses for community use of your buildings, just as the media center is the hub of learning. I'm sure you want your schools to be the hub of the community, and a lot of time that has to do with making sure that there's secure entrance in and out, so when people come in after hours into the cafeteria and the gymnasium, they don't have access to the entire building. And the final one is very important, a private area for student de-escalation. We call them calming rooms, but to have a student who needs to calm down in the office where parents are waiting, and not always the most private situation, is a concern. And so those are the kind of things we look at as well. Considerations to study, these are it's kind of a summary of what we found as your priorities: safety and security, learning environment, overall district facility objectives, And I said that earlier we would take a look at some of those options, kind of a preview. This is just an example of some options that we will present to you with an opportunity for you, to investigate further, to address the elementary needs. There's a few bullets there. You might consider grades K through 4 in 3 elementaries and repurpose Central Elementary. You might consider 4 K4 buildings, repurpose Central, and construct a new K4 building. You might want to have 4 K5 buildings, repurpose Central, and new construction of K5. This is just a small sampling of the options that are out there for you to consider. There will be other options to meet capacity and flexibility needs. A new transportation center. That's another area we've been asked to take a look at. It does need further investigation, and we'll continue to verify, validate, and explore options for the district. But you have a need for space, more bays, lifts, and parking. That might involve constructing a new space, reworking the old space, or repurposing the existing spaces. Okay, well, I am going to, at this time, turn it over to Jim Thompson for next steps and to wrap up.
Thank you, Ken. So, challenging to condense lots of months and lots of information, and you saw some of the handouts we gave you last time, lots of pages. Hopefully tonight, with the assistance of Dr. Millman, your superintendent, Mr. Tate, this is a nice snapshot at a high level. Maybe a couple of months from now, you'll refer back to it. So I want to be reminded of what we're studying, what we're trying to analyze. And as Dr. Folks said, it's not every detail, but I think it shows you the direction we're pointed in to put this together. In terms of timeline, always get asked, well, what's next? How long will that take? We felt like, in listening to your administrative team, that January would be a good time to come back and meet with principals and get some input appropriately. We'll also be back with you all as a group after the holidays. The other thing is, as you saw the information that we've gleaned, and it was just summary bullet points, think of as we review options. So we're going to go into a school and we're going to maybe make some modifications and do some things and invest some dollars. These are like checklist items. What have we done to improve sight lines to the parking lot if needed? Do we feel like all the classrooms have been accounted for at the right size? Can we get some of that collaborative learning or individualized instruction area captured in some way inside the school? So some of these things can be as simple as working with your staff to reassign purposes. Sometimes it might be, well, we don't need this casework. If we take that out, we can fit a few more children in here, and then it works out to be a great space. So some of these things are very low dollar, high impact. Other things might be very puzzling and say, this is going to take a dollar investment. So if we're going to do this, are we getting the outcome that you want? So we like options. We like choices for school boards. We like you to have the opportunity to mull it over, so to speak. And hopefully that all makes a good sense to you in terms of a good way. In addition, if you see the next steps, you probably get the idea some of this is collaborative, meaning there's some Lebanon Schools things that you'll be doing and continuing to collect on and report to us. And that's been great. As Dr. Folks said, we really appreciated Gibraltar's the ability to roll up our sleeves, compare notes, exchange ideas, and keep this thing as a study moving forward in the manner you want. So I think we'll be in a good position. In some ways, we reset this to kind of get started again. And so I imagine beginning of next year, with everything else in the world settling down just a little bit more, we can keep things moving forward in a steady manner for you. So we feel good. We've got a lot of work yet to do for you, and we're just very mindful of what lies ahead. Questions or anything that Dr. Folks and I can address for you?
I don't think so.
I appreciate the staff and administration working thus far with Gibraltar. As Jim said, as we move forward in the next several months, will involve more stakeholders and maybe administrators and staff that we've surveyed. Our staff were surveyed on some of their opinions, but haven't had sit-down conversations necessarily with the assessment team or even with the administration on specific items. We're not to that point yet, But this is another first step in prioritizing the needs within the district. There'll always be more needs than dollars, even if you do have outstanding facilities like we have. But there are needs in each building, and part of those are meeting the instructional needs of students. So we put that first and foremost. Some things will shake out as priorities, as we know. We've talked about that openly as a board here. Some of the age of our schools and whatnot, as Jim touched on. But exciting times ahead, I think, for our community and families and our staff. So it's a good first step in that direction. I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, Hinkie Development Group request for residential TIF district for Waterford project. Dr. Millman and Ken Franson.
Kent can jump in as I forget things, perhaps from your seat if I if I hit. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Carols are the best? Yes. All right, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Martin. As Mr. Bertrand said, I'll kind of walk through a unique request, honestly, of the school board that has come to us in the last several months. We have been asked as a RDC, and as you know, I sit on the redevelopment commission as well, by Hinkie Development Group to consider a residential TIF for development that has recently been annexed by the city of Lebanon. So I just wanted to walk the board through what it is and a little bit about the development, what that means for the district, what impact it might have on the district in several ways. So I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can. The items I'd like to go over tonight include, and I'm going to scroll up here, who is making the requests. I mentioned it is a Hinkie Development Group, and information about their development. What is a residential TIF? It's something, again, that isn't widely used, so it's, we need folks to be familiar with what that request is, the scope, why the request is being made here in 2020, and again, the impacts it'll have on the district. So who's making the request is Hinkie Development Group. Some of you may be familiar with his work. One of his first developments was Bridgewater Club in Westfield. Many years ago now, seems like yesterday, but actually many years ago when that development was developed in Westfield. It'll have a lot of similarities to that and another development here. Mr. Hinkie also has the development that many of our families are familiar with in the community at Grand Park in Westfield as well. Probably a little bit more parallel to some of the amenities and vision that the developer has for this property. Would mirror a little bit more the Chatham Hills type of environment in Westfield as well. Perhaps not as large, with maybe not as many ancillary neighborhoods around it, but very similar in its approach to the clubhouse. Most recent, the development that Mr. Hinkie has put together is Holiday Farms in Zionsville as well, and you go down 421, you will see that as well. So he is a developer who has several successful developments in the area and is now looking to branch out into Boone County more, and it sees Lebanon as a great fit for this development and for many of the reasons that we're all aware of, our livability and also our proximity to the city. So this is the development that he is considering, in the city is working through the approval process on. It's called Waterford. It is going to be a mixed-use, community-centered development. It'll have an 18-hole championship course, much like the Chatham Hills, as I mentioned, a clubhouse. It will be a blend of retail, commercial, industrial, of course, residential as well. When it's all built out, after about approximate 15-year build-out, There'll be about 3,000 residents. Some would be condominium development, apartment as well, but mostly single-family dwellings, estimating approximately 10,000 residents in that area. To give you an idea of where the development is located, this is kind of a general sketch. This is a relatively early sketch of the property that he has acquired. For this, you'll note that the blue currently is outside of the city limits. The green area is within the city limits, which is slated to become part of that planned unit development. You might see, and I don't have a little pointer, but down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that is Perryworth Elementary, not the lower right of the screen, the lower right of the green, I should say. That little carve-out, that little corner right there is Perryworth Elementary, if that gives you the location. The small green, it's not that small, it's about 100 acres actually, of property on the north side of that map is right next to the Boone County Fairgrounds. So that gives you the kind of an idea of the distance between the top and bottom of the development. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Did you do that for me? Oh, there you go. That's all right. I'll go back one. And this is kind of a design of what it would look like, where the course would be located. The lighter blue color along the top is more of he calls it a lifestyle community. So those are actually residential on that upper left area. That yellow color is the commercial area. So along 65, you'll see kind of a blend as well. So it kind of gives you an idea, again, of the scope of the project. I mentioned some of these things, but there will be some higher priced homes in that area. You'll be looking at, again, kind of mirroring some of what's been happening in Westfield, 15-year build-out, as I mentioned. There is a high need, as many of you know, in Lebanon. There's not a lot of inventory of homes in the above, let's say, above $350,000 range. And this would certainly be above that in most of the residential areas. Would certainly increase our assessed valuation in the area, and we think increase our enrollment over time. It would certainly contribute to some increased enrollment, we believe, over time. So let's talk a little bit about what a residential TIF is. It's very similar to a commercial TIF in that it requires approval or resolution from the Redevelopment Commission. It does not affect the tax revenue on the current base assessed value of a property. The taxes are on the improvements within that existing property. So the taxing units would still capture the taxes of the original value of the property. But how the TIF works is similar to the commercial TIF in that the Redevelopment Commission captures the dollars rather than it going to the taxing units. And then the RDC is able to issue bonds on behalf of the developer, and then that's able to enhance the growth and amenities and improvements on that property. That's important in this case because Hinkie Development Group is looking to create a very high quality community in this area. In order to do that, the clubhouse, for example, that they're going to be building as part of this, the roads and infrastructure, the width of the roads, the parks that they can create, the walking paths that they can create, the amenities within that area will help drive the market and the type of home and development that can be built out there. So if the developer is able to have the funds to do that up front, then he's certainly able to attract a higher quality with the development. Where it differs from a commercial TIF is that it requires a resolution or approval from the school board that represents the school district within that requested TIF area. Certainly, when you're talking about building residences, you're talking about potential student growth and enrollment growth. And so when they passed this law at the State House, they wanted to make sure that the school district and local school board had a say in this because it is a residential request. It does expire after 20 years as well as part of the law, which is a little bit different than the commercial TIF. So the scope of this request is that it's common, honestly, that for it to be a full request for 100% of the improvements on the property. Mr. Hinkie is going to be requesting an 80-20 TIF, where there would still be 20% of the AV on the improvements, which would pass through to the taxing unit. So he is not asking for the full 100% TIF. So I think that's important as well as we move into some of the other scopes of the request. Why it's being requested now in 2020 is that in order to qualify for a residential TIF, there has to be a 3-year average. They take a 3-year average of new home starts, and that must be less than 1% of the total number of homes within the municipality. So the 3-year average that would be captured for this would be based on 2017, 2018, and 2019 new home starts in the city of Lebanon. We've all seen the expansion of Sunbrook on Witt Road, help me with the name, Mr. Wiry. Riley Ridge, thank you. Just went in my head and out at the same time. We've seen the expansion of those developments over the course of 2020. There's about 4,500 homes in the city of Lebanon. If you included 2020 in the 3-year average and made that a 2018, 19, 20 average, the new home starts would exceed the total number of homes in Lebanon. So there's a window of opportunity for this request that will expire at the end of 2020 if this is not done at this time. Impact on the residential TIF on us. I mentioned, I think we could expect some increased enrollment. I mentioned the higher quality amenities, and that is one of the reasons why I think that, again, it's a market that we don't currently have. Certainly to keep families within our district boundaries as they look to step up, buy that next level home. This is an opportunity to fill that gap with an inventory and have a community that would be part of that. So we see that as a plus for us. I'm going to take a look real quick here. It's hard to look at it from there. I know hopefully you had a copy that I sent you electronically, but this slide, what it shows here is the 20% that would be passed through to the taxing units. And if it was a little bit larger, it'd be easier for me to illustrate it to the folks. But you could see in 2023, he's estimating approximately, let's see, I'm going to go to the next, I think I'm looking at the wrong, there it is. I had the wrong slide up. He's estimating approximately $250,000 worth of increased assessed valuation in that property. So if you think of 20% of that number, somewhere around $51,000, somewhere in the $50,000 range, that would be passed through the taxing units. The 2,000 acres that's part of this development currently zoned agricultural, and so it's probably around $45,000 to all taxing units now. Obviously, we get a percentage of that $40,000. So within 2 to 3 years of this TIF, with the improvements that will be made on the property, within 2 years, we'll be at or above the taxes that we're currently receiving on the property. And the next slide just shows the pass-through dollars starting at approximately $3 million in 2023, all the way up to $153 million in assessed valuation improvements in that property over the course of 15 years. Baker Tilly also showed kind of how that would affect our tax rate over time. even with the increased assessed valuation. This is all based on the 2020 certified tax rate. That over time, you can see that it certainly would drop, which makes sense because our assessed valuation would increase over that time. Last slide, I think about the last slide here, is going to be kind of why it makes sense for us. Gibraltar pointed out to us this evening that we're in a pretty good position when it comes to absorbing growth within the district. We have some exciting opportunities ahead in the next few years, perhaps with some new construction at the primary grades. We are currently fine from a capacity standpoint at the secondary level. So it's a good, from a timing standpoint for us, it's always good to increase AV. And again, I pointed out that we would be in a good position in about the third year of that TIP. And kind of where that leaves us now with the final request of Mr. Hinkie. He presented to the RDC at our last meeting, talked about kind of the scope of the project. Where we are as a school district is I'm continuing conversation with him. It has to make sense for the district. You have to be responsible, obviously, for future planning and potential growth in that area. So while even on the face of it, it looks as though there are some things that would certainly make sense for the district, again, it has to be something that is worth our school board's consideration. What we know is that in order to address that future growth or potential future growth in that area, that property and acquisition of property is extremely important. Certainly couldn't expand much more than the footprint of Perry Worth without additional property. Certainly as he's acquiring that through his contracts and planning for this development, that's certainly an asset that we would be discussing with Mr. Hinkie and the potential of filling that need for the district. I can just tell you that I'm going to continue to pursue that with Mr. Hinkie in that conversation. And I'll report back to the board at the next board meeting. Time is of the essence, obviously, as it does have to be, has to go through the RDC and our school board by the end of 2020. So those conversations will have to be kind of swift and aggressive. But I may bring an action item to the board in November if we can progress quickly enough. And it's something that I feel with the conversations with all of us, that it's something worthy of us considering in the form of a recommendation and resolution. But I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Mr. Franson's here this evening as well. Has been very versed in this conversation as well, and he's here to kind of help answer your questions. And if there's anything I left out, can't now be the time.
I think you did a very nice job of explaining a very complicated process. I have a couple of corrections.
Thank you.
If you don't mind.
Please.
You said that the green area had not yet been annexed into the city. That has all been annexed.
Perfect.
So both blue areas and the green areas are now in the city. It's my understanding that he may have also purchased some additional land, which was not part of the original rezoning and annexation proceeding. And if that's true, and I'm not involved with that, then there'll have to be an amendment of the annexation ordinance and an additional rezoning of that land as well. But it's a fairly small piece of property adjacent to the roughly 2,000 acres that's already been annexed. Also, the statute allows for a residential TIF to go for 25 years,
Okay.
up to 25 maximum. It's my understanding that this proposal contemplates only lasting 20 years, but it could go longer. And there is a public hearing before the Redevelopment Commission on the 19th of November, at which time the Redevelopment Commission will hear public comment from the local taxing units and the community at large with questions, comments, concerns about the residential TIF aspect of this. And you did summarize why Lebanon currently qualifies for a residential TIF. Lebanon, like several cities, but certainly not most, has had very little residential housing over the last 3 years. And so it's a statutory method that's only been on the books for about a year to provide this incentive to jumpstart a residential project. And it's only available as long as your numbers satisfy the statutory requirements. And after the first of the year, Lebanon will no longer qualify, at least currently would not qualify, because 2020 has seen a decent increase in new home starts that we have not had for the last 3 years. So that's why there's some urgency to getting this considered and action taken by the end of the year if it's going to happen. In the interest of full disclosure, I did represent Hankey Development in the annexation and the rezoning of this property. And I told Mr. Hankey that because I represent the schools, and I have for 40 years now, I would not be able to assist him with the residential TIF application process. So he has independent counsel who's representing him on that before the city and before the redevelopment commission. I'm conflicted, as they say, on that. I want you to know that I'm looking out for your interests on the residential TIF component, but really it's not a legal question. It's legal in the sense that the law says the school board must give its blessing. And if the school board does not give its blessing to this residential TIF, it cannot happen. Even if the city wants it to happen, even if the redevelopment commission wants it to happen. So you effectively have veto power over this residential TIF application. And you can use that to your advantage. And I think your plan is to try to extract some concessions from Mr. Hankey in return for your support. So Dr. Milliman is going to be working on that to see what might be able to be accomplished in return for the school giving its blessing to what he wants, which is the residential TIF component. The merits of the residential TIF have been summarized. Reasonable people could discuss the pros and cons of doing it. Will it happen without the residential TIF? I don't know. I've been told that it may not happen without the residential TIF, but only time will tell. It is an important part of the project as far as Mr. Hankey is concerned, because it does provide him with some incentives to cover some of the costs of infrastructure expansion and extension, which is so important and so expensive as part of a project of this magnitude. The taxpayers in this development will be the ones paying for these infrastructure expansions. The residential taxes are captured, as they say, and they're held in a fund administered by the RDC, and that fund is then used to pay the bonds that are used to pay for the initial extension of infrastructure. The same technique from a commercial standpoint was used in connection with the original development of the Lebanon Business Park. I just want you to know, I want the public to know that I'm not lobbying for this. I have my personal views about it, but that's not why you hired me. You're hiring me to help you with the legal side of this question, and that's what my role will be in this matter. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the legalities of this or anything that Dr. Milliman summarized, but I don't really have much else to offer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Kent?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Go right ahead.
Hey, and I don't know who can answer this, if anyone, but so the funds go to the RDC for infrastructure. Does that include the golf course? Is that considered infrastructure? Is that something completely different?
No.
My only concern is that I know that golf courses are closing. So, is that going to be a draw for people to live in that community to have that golf course there? And we do already have, several in the county.
Well, first of all, a golf course would not qualify as infrastructure. Infrastructure would
I didn't think so.
be roads and drainage facilities, stormwater management, et cetera. So the money for the golf course will have to come from Mr. Hankey, just as the money for the other amenities that he will presumably put in this Waterford development. As far as whether a golf community is a good investment right now, I suppose people would say, depends on the golf course. The Bridgewater Club, Chatham Hills, and Holiday Farms are 3 projects that he is currently doing. They are overwhelming successes with lot sales and new residents, many of whom belong to the club. It's interesting, nationwide, only 50% of people who live on a golf course actually play golf. So a lot of people live on golf courses because they like to live there. They think it enhances their property values, but they're not necessarily golfers. That's what Mr. Hankey has reported to the zoning boards and the redevelopment commission in past presentations on this very project. So whether the golf course will do well or not do well, his track record would indicate that it will do well. There are some courses that have folded up in the current economy. Whether they'll come back at some point is hard to say. But it really doesn't have much to do with the residential TIF issue.
Okay, I just, I mean, thanks, I'm not a golfer, so that answers my question, but, if we're trying to make sure it's a good investment, we want something that obviously will draw people there. And since it's open to the public, I assume that people would want to play on it. I'm not a golfer.
I don't know personally whether it's been decided whether this will be a public golf course or a private country club. He probably
Are the other ones public?
I don't think so.
No, none of the 3 he's done yet are public golf courses. They're all
Okay.
privately owned golf clubs. But
Okay.
could be. I haven't heard him say. And maybe he's decided and he hasn't said, or maybe he said and I didn't hear it.
The draw, I think, Lisa, too, for this type of development is the clubhouse piece, because any neighborhood that would be part of the Waterford extended development, as part of their HOA fees, would have access to the clubhouse and the amenities there. So there's a bigger draw with the homes that don't reside directly on the golf course. That is a draw because they have access to that clubhouse and those amenities through their HOA. So it's a when you
It's
that's
right.
how
It's a
that's
lifestyle community. The current projects that he has built, Bridgewater Club is largely done. Chatham Hills is still underway, and Holiday Farms is just getting started. These clubhouses and the facilities have any number of amenities other than golf. They have bowling, they have indoor and outdoor swimming, they have fitness centers. They have a lot of things that people enjoy. Whether they play golf or not is their decision. But people who live in these communities have access to the club, the dining facilities, and tennis and a variety of things that are part of the lifestyle community. So I think he'd be happy to. And has he been before this board?
He has not.
He's not been before the school board. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be willing to come and talk about his project and his experience and answer your questions. But he has made numerous presentations to the city zoning boards and the RDC and the city council over the past several months. But those are good questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there, okay, you're saying if this doesn't go through, then it'll cost him more. Has there ever been a dollar amount on what this could save him, or does he say, well, I'll have to make the streets narrower or the side, is there ever been anything on public record of if it doesn't go through, what might happen?
I don't know. I think that's a question for Baker Tilly, which is the city's financial advisor who's doing the economic analysis of this. I haven't heard a number as to what the quantify the benefits to the development would be if the residential TIF is approved. But I think he would say, he has said, that if he can get some help with the residential TIF, it will free him up to spend more money on amenities, clubhouse, amenities that people might like, better quality development yielding better, bigger, more valuable homes. That's really, I think, what's driving this a bit. Residential TIF is very new. There's only 2 in the state so far. It's only been on the books a little over a year, so there's not a great track record of how will it play out and how valuable or effective of an incentive it is. But the General Assembly wrote this last year to enable this opportunity to exist in those communities that want to have kickstart the residential development. And because they know there's a huge cost of extending roads, extending sewer and water lines, extending drainage facilities, stormwater management, huge ponds that are required to manage and move the water. So if there's some way to incentivize these developers to do this, then it's more likely that the development will actually happen. That's the theory of it all. But what the numbers are, I don't know.
I had a question about just the tax revenue. So am I correct in thinking that the revenue that we get right now off of that piece of property, we will get?
Yes, the
It's a
current
delay
taxes that are
in-
being paid on the land are not impacted by the TIF.
Okay.
You're getting about $20 an acre. The property owner pays about $20 an acre currently for agricultural land in Boone County. So there's 2,000 acres. That land is, generally speaking, spinning off about $40,000 a year in property taxes. That money will continue to be paid, will not be affected by the TIF.
Okay.
The enhanced taxes because of the improvements that are made to the land, that's the part that gets captured.
Okay.
Normally in a TIF, it can be up to 100%. He's asked the RDC for an 80% TIF, which would mean 20% of the taxes would be distributed as they would normally,
Right now.
and
Okay.
80% would be captured in the TIF.
Okay.
But how much those taxes will be depends upon how many
Right.
homes are built, how soon, what the tax rates are at the time the homes go online, and that sort of thing.
But by approving this, we wouldn't take any type of losses.
You'll suffer,
It
you'll
wouldn't-
experience no loss
No
of
loss.
revenue than what you're currently
Great.
receiving.
Thank you.
And you would get 20%, you'd get your
Right,
share
it
of the
would.
20%
And eventually,
going forward, and once it wears off, once the bonds have been paid, then there would be full capture of the taxes back to the taxing units. And the taxing units, the school is the largest taxing unit, but the library gets a piece, the health department gets a piece, the county gets a piece, the city government, they're all local units of government funded by property taxes, but the school is the single largest beneficiary of property taxes currently.
okay, thanks.
Anything else? Just so you know, the next board meeting is when you might be asked to approve this or give your blessing. I cannot be here that night. I have 2 other meetings that I have to attend, and I don't know how I'm going to manage the other 2, but I can't come to 3. So I'm happy to answer any questions in advance of that meeting. I'll be happy to give Dr. Millman whatever information I have to present that night. But if I'm not here next time, it won't be because I didn't want to be here. I'll be somewhere else.
And in the past, you've had a member of your staff come too, so we could have that option, couldn't we?
We could, if you want somebody here to answer questions, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item number 8, consent agenda for routine business matters. Mr. Tate.
Yes, my pleasure to report to the board and the community this evening our monthly financial report. As of September 30th, we show these percents expended. Education fund at 67.77%, operations fund at 61.55%. At this time, I'd ask board approval for the claims numbered 51907 through 52205, and the payrolls dated September 18th, October 2nd, October 16th. The claims total $2,655,929.31. The payrolls totaled $2,494,118.38, for a total of $5,150,047.69.
Okay. Board, I need a motion to pay our bills and pay our employees.
I'll make a motion.
Lisa? Second?
I'll second.
Robert? Any questions about those? Okay. All those in favor of the routine business matters for claims 51906 through 52205 and payrolls on September 18th and October 2nd and 16th, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9, agenda for routine staff matters. Dr. Millman.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. This evening, under item 9A, are classified, bring 2 custodial positions, 1 food service position, 3 instructional assistants, 1 high school secretary position, 1 clerical reassignment to state student data management coordinator, and 7 substitute teaching positions. Under 9B this evening, bring you 1 letter of resignation, or Mr. Ken Keene, a math teacher at the high school, and a recommendation under 9C, Mr. O'Rourke recommending Angela Titus to fill that math position. I'm happy to make the recommendation this evening of a new joint services director. The governing board has unanimously recommended Madeline Sandberg as director of special services. Madeline was with Joint Services about a year ago as assistant director, and we're very pleased to make that recommendation to the board this evening for your approval. And I'm recommending Rebecca Durbin to continue her services as a speech language pathologist. This is an outside contracted service to the district for those services. Under 9D this evening in extracurriculars, Amanda Scoble is recommending her slate of winter coaches, girls basketball, boys basketball, and swimming this evening. And Mr. Levine is recommending his slate of winter coaches in boys basketball, girls basketball, and wrestling, and I believe also swimming and diving and cheerleading this evening. Mrs. Moore is recommending some ECA positions at Perry Worth. Ashley Faisal as a Fine Arts Club sponsor. Ashley Faisal also as the STEM Club sponsor. And Kaylee Hendrickson as tech coach. Mr. Dunshee this evening at the middle school is recommending Debbie Green as an academic coach and Dee Hood as a tech coach. Lots of personnel for your consideration this evening. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Board, I'm going to put these all together. I need a motion to accept the classified, certified staff communications and ECA positions.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions about any of those? Dr. Moe, I have one. I know that we'll start seeing some substitutes, and I see a recent graduate, and I'm sure we'll probably have more kids graduate and come home from college. Do those kids go to, I'm looking at Kari back there. Do those kids go to elementary schools? Do they go to middle school? Do they go wherever you need them?
So our practice is that you must have graduated for 2 years, so 2 years
Okay,
So once you're 2 years out, then you can go to high school.
okay,
So they are allowed to select what level, and even what school they would like to send you at.
okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of accepting the agenda and routine staff matters for classified, certified staff communications and ECA, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Request resolution approval for 3-year capital project plans for 2021 through 23, 5-year bus replacement. Mr. Tate.
Yes,
Take it over here.
present to the board here, we've gone to a work session, public hearing, advertisement, and this is the next step for the school board. So I'm requesting approval of the 3-year capital projects plan, which will cover the years 2021 through 2023, the 5-year bus replacement plan, which will cover 2021 through 2025, and our 2021 budgets for the education fund, the debt service fund, the operations fund, the rainy day fund, and the referendum debt capital fund. Also, for the record, if it's showing the minutes, that, so the state notes that we've been compliant, our transfers from our education to the operation fund are less than 15% of their guideline. Ask approval of the 2 plans and the 2021 budgets at this time.
Okay. So board, I need a motion to accept the 3-year capital project plan for 21 through 23, the 5-year bus replacement plan, 21 through 25, and the 2021 school budget.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any questions about those? Okay. All those in favor of the 3-year capital project plan, 21 through 23, and the 5-year bus replacement plan, 21 through 25, and the school budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
Thank you for your support on this.
Thank you. Item number 11, request approval for farm rental agreement. Mr. Tate.
Yes, to bring before you, as you have a copy of it in your background notes, request for approval for Will Hoyt Grain Company to continue farming the approximately 59.6 tillable acres at $222 per acre. That's based upon the Purdue Agricultural Economics Report. Request approval of this farm rental agreement for 1 year.
Board, I need a motion to accept the farm rental agreement from Will Hoyt Farms for $220 an acre.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll
Oh.
second.
Liz? Any questions about that? Okay. All those in favor for Will Hoyt Grain to do the farm rental agreement at $220 an acre, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Request approval of administrator contracts. Dr. Millen.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. This item is a request to approve administrative contracts through the 21-22 school year. So the teachers have been on a status quo contract until making adjustments to their salary. We've traditionally approved 2-year contracts for the administrators, so this is doing so prior to the next item, which will deal with compensation.
Okay. Board, I need a motion to request the approval of administrative contracts.
I'll make a motion.
Lisa? Second? I'll second it. Okay. Any questions? All those in favor of the approval of administrative contracts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I think that was an aye for. I think.
Okay. Item number 13, request approval of administrative salary and stipend for 2021.
Thank you, Ms.
Dr. Miller.
Bertrand. Bring for you consideration for compensation for our administrative team this evening. It's approximately a 2.5% increase. This is discussed as well as a $500 stipend. As you're aware, the additional compensation for our teachers was part of the 2-year collective bargaining agreement that we are in the 2nd year of currently. And so with some discussion about what would be appropriate based on that amount and fair for our administrators, I bring this for your consideration this evening.
Okay. Board, I need a motion to approve the administrative salary and stipend contracts for the 2021 school year.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
Robert? Any questions about this? Okay. All those in favor of the administrative salary and stipend for the 2021 school year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Did you say aye, Lisa? I'm sorry. Did you approve that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I did.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, motion passes. Item number 14, request approval for non-certified pay scales and stipend for 2021. Mr. Tate?
So in your background information, you're provided what I'm presenting to you for and recommending for the pay scales for the non-certified. Also includes some of the salaried non-certified staff. And also at the same time requesting a stipend of 1% of the earnings from January 1 through December 11th, a minimum of $25, not to exceed $300, also be provided as compensation to the non-certified staff.
Okay. All right, board, I need a motion to request approval for non-certified pay scales and stipend for the 2021 school year.
I'll make that motion.
Robert? Second?
I'll second.
Lisa? Any questions about that?
So everybody in the corporation will receive a raise this year.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right.
Nope.
All those in favor of the approval for non-certified pay scales and stipend for 2021 signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Motion
Thank you.
passes. Request approval of revised e-learning guide. There's Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott. I didn't see you back there. I was like, where, her name's here, but I don't see her.
Back in the crowd. Well, good evening. You might remember in June of 2019, we presented to you our first e-learning guide.
Yeah.
Little did we know at that time what that was going to take us. So thank goodness we had some things in place, even though it wasn't necessarily ideal for an extended period of time. So during the time during the stay home and in the summertime and even this fall, we've been collecting a lot of input, feedback about truly our e-learning guide. You might recall that when we first put that together, the idea was to have a plan in place for emergencies. And typically here it's snow, road conditions, ice, that kind of thing. We actually did have epidemic listed in that guide at the time, but we were thinking more like flu or chickenpox, you know? We didn't realize that. So the revised guide, I kind of gave you some highlights on your cover sheet. Included for the first time planned e-learning days. Now, you know, before the pandemic, our conversation was when we got to the point of wanting to request planned e-learning day opportunities, we were thinking more for professional development and that kind of thing. Obviously, next year next week, excuse me, we have 3 already ready to go in the calendar for the adjustments we had to make with our calendar this year. And you know, the state has given us lots of flexibility with the concept of e-learning to do that. So the newly revised guide that presented to you this evening still includes emergency days up to a total of 5, no more than 4 consecutive preferably. That's like if, the weather's really bad, consecutive days or something like that. And then it also includes the opportunity for up to 4 consecutive or 5 cumulative planned e-learning days. And we're hoping, that experience that we've had so far, this is a reasonable way. There's still the unforeseen of what might come about in the next several months. We have no idea. But there's a difference between e-learning days and if we have to do an extended at-home learning opportunity. And this really, what we're talking about tonight, is really about e-learning. So it's hard to think about it without thinking about what we experienced in the spring. But that's really what we're talking about, e-learning, with the idea that there's a paragraph in here that talks about separate documents would have to be created for if we really had to go to forced at home for an extended period of time again. So some of the other concepts in the e-learning guide that we didn't have last year was all of our parking lots at all 6 of our schools now have Wi-Fi access. So that's been added, that hopefully an opportunity for families, staff, whoever, that might need access to that in the case of an unplanned e-learning especially. So that was added. Some clarification about expectations was in there. Also, you might remember we had a hotline. Well, hotline was used quite a bit. And we now have it added so that there's a phone number so you can text, or there's an email you can email. And in some occasions, you may be able to get actually a live person on the phone, but it's a little harder to do that. So we wanted to be sure to have email and texting as an offering on there. So that's a possibility for people to reach out. Also, when we originally planned this, attendance for students, we had a way of doing it where they would click on a button to, mark their attendance. Now it's each level, when I say level, I'm talking elementary, middle to high school, may have varying ways they do attendance because of the nature of the student. If you're a 17-year-old giving attendance versus a kindergartner and it's, next week and they've only been doing this for a short period of time, it's a little different. So that'll be kind of customized depending on the level. The other significant change in the guide is that this is a new requirement that we have. It's called ICLP, the Individual Continuous Learning Plan. That's a special education component. That is now, it's like if there are short-term or long-term closures, it's a requirement within their IEP. So that's laid out in detail on page 11 of the document. We just took the verbiage that came from the Department of Ed that's added to that. So since we had you approve it back in June of 19, we felt like you really needed to know about these changes. And again, the caveat is that if we have to do extended at-home learning, it's above and beyond this, okay? And terminology is kind of important too, in that sometimes it gets confusing, especially when the media makes a reference to terms and then people start using them. When we think about e-learning in this concept is, like I said, for like emergency closures that are short or planned that are short. Virtual learning is, we only have a small number of our students who are virtual learners. We, for example, provide the education for the Indiana Teen Challenge students that are enrolled in our high school. So they're considered 11 high school students, but they are enrolled, they participate virtually. Not as remote learners overseen by our teachers, but using some of our programming through Edmentum. So those are virtual learners. Then remote learners are the folks who, for right now, have chosen to stay at home, but we provide all the programming to them and some teacher support as far as keeping them engaged and parent communication and assistance like hotline, that kind of thing. So e-learning, virtual learning, extended home learning, remote learning, they're all very different things. And you throw in homeschool in there, some people refer to some of this as being homeschooling, and that's a whole different animal, So I think it just helps sometimes to know the distinction between those terms. And going through this process helped us kind of get a little more solid in our mind so we use them correctly.
Yeah, okay.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a student that stays at home. What do you do if they don't do their work?
Like a remote learner, are we
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, just-
Or any time that they're at home?
Yeah, they're not in the building and they gotta do it, and they're just, is there anything you can make stick to say, do the work, or?
Well, I know, like, for example, I've spoken to some of the remote instructors that are working with some of our elementary students, and they are trying really hard to continually have contact with the students, and if necessary, with the parents, let them know what's happening. I think they're trying the best they can. It's a very difficult situation when you don't have the,
Oh, right,
you know,
yeah.
the face-to-face. It changes things tremendously. I know I was talking to one of the principals I think it was yesterday, and this was actually Doyle at the middle school, and, you know, they're really trying hard to keep things going, and some of the remote kids, they tried to get them to do Mind Play, which is one of our literacy interventions, and it's just, if you don't have somebody proctoring sometimes, it's hard, if you're struggling at all or distracted easily, it's hard to stay focused for like a 30-minute stint of time to complete something. So there's probably quite a range of really engagement right now. It's less than ideal, but people are really trying to keep them on top of things. Anyone else have any questions or?
What if you're middle school or high school and you're remote learning, but you want to be on a sports team?
Currently, that's allowed,
It is?
currently, yes. Yep.
Do you wake up in the morning and go, what am I going to do today?
I keep a running list, and I like the process of, you know, cross something off, you know, so go to what's
Other than this,
next.
there's not a lot going on, I don't think, is there?
It's a interesting, well, you know, what I tried to describe to people is like, you know, when you've been doing this work for a few years or decades, you kind of have files you pull from, okay, it's time to do this, you know. Everything we go to do is very different, so you have to think differently about all your interactions. I mean, just scheduling a meeting. Okay, is this gonna be Zoom, or gonna have to do this, I'm gonna do this person doesn't have, you know, and it kind of makes your brain hurt after a while, but, you know, kudos to everyone. How the teachers and principals are pulling it off is pretty marvelous. I just, it makes your head hurt, like I say, you know, but they're doing the best they can, as are the families, I think. It's a difficult time, and the news people keep talking about fatigue. I think everyone has some fatigue going on right now, so we kind of have to, you know, have moments like our Pride moments earlier this evening where you're kind of remind you why we're here and keep us kind of stoked a little bit, because it is exhausting for everyone. People are doing the best they can.
Yep, good point.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Board, I need a motion to approve the revised e-learning guide that Mrs. Scott just talked to us about.
I'll make a motion.
Lisa? Second?
I'll second.
Any other questions? All right. All those with approval of the revised e-learning guide signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item number 16, second reading of policy updates. Dr. Millman.
Thank you, Mr. Bertrand. I have 16 policies for a request for approval this evening as a second reading, so it does require board action this evening. If you have a question, I'll be happy to answer it, but there's 16 of them, so it might take me a moment to scroll to the policy to find where you might have the question. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Board, I need a motion to accept the second reading of policy update.
I'll make the motion.
Liz? Second? I'll make the
Second.
motion. Any questions? I have a question about 3220.02.
32.
Just kidding.
I'll scroll to it. I was on
I
it.
like how you jumped on it.
I was on it. I
You're
got it
ready to
right
go.
here on the screen.
All right, all those in favor of the second reading of policy update signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. Glad I passed your test.
Yeah, you were on it. I have to ask you what you do when you first wake up in the morning. Dave.
Think about policy.
New business, Mr. Martin.
We have,
We,
yeah, sorry.
I can say if you, we have a LHS band trip for Disney World scheduled for August 22nd through the 27th in 2022.
October, I think.
Yeah, did I say October?
You said August, I think.
August, yeah, it's October,
Sure,
I'm
it's
sorry.
August.
October. So I need a motion to accept that, please.
Make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
I will second as a parent of a band member who really wants to go on that trip.
All right,
Conflict.
we'll put Lisa in there. All right, any questions?
Insurance?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
sure we do.
O'Rourke, we will be making sure all the insurance options are
Yeah.
in place
The
for that
parents
one.
are understanding.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Okay,
Just want to be sure.
yep.
We
Any
don't
other
have,
questions?
we don't have the calendar.
Cancellation information, it's all on there.
I know, I'm just saying it out loud.
There you go.
Yeah,
We do not have the
Everyone.
22-23 calendar approved for the board
Right.
yet. This is consistent with where fall break
break.
typically falls, but if for some reason it does not fall during that week, Mr. O'Rourke has agreed to approve that from his desk. That they would approve that for them to travel during that week. So we'll work on calendar at some point
So
here.
put that down that Mr. O'Rourke has approved that, if it doesn't fall in fall break.
We do it for Christmas, they don't do it over spring break, they go on their trip to New York, right? We have to say no to the band to be able to take care of it through our choir, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
All right, all those in favor of accepting the LHS band trip to Disney World on October 22nd through the 27th, 2022, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Item number 18, we have e-learning dates on October 26th through the 28th, which actually is during fall break. Fall break starts October 29th and 30th. November 24th, 2020 was our next regular scheduled board meeting. Do you guys have anything else that you would like to bring to the board besides waking up first thing in the morning, decide what to do?
It's Bus Safety Week.
Go
Yeah,
ahead. Go
Steve,
ahead.
you got a count? Bus Safety Week.
Members have reported 8 stop arm violations, we were able to process 5, and the school police department witnessed and wrote 9.
Good.
Huh?
I think there was 3 today alone, if I heard the radio right, or was that yesterday? One bus driver had 2 cars at the same time, and then you were on site for another one, right? There's 3 in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything
Maybe
else?
Someday it'll be 0.
I think
I
you're-
got it.
Good luck with that.
we have 2 more board meetings left. I think maybe you should ride with Mr. Smith one day and just
There you
go.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get a badge?
Anything else? All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.